Like many Hall of Famers before him, Don Henderson served with the 10th Mountain Division, first training at Camp Hale, and then fighting in the Italian Alps, where he was later awarded both the Purple Heart and the Bronze Star for his heroic achievement. Rather than going on to build and develop ski resorts, Henderson built young men. Once back in the U.S., Henderson used the GI Bill to attend Middlebury College, where he became the 4-event Ski Meister champion and captained his school to the 1948 NCAA title. It was at Middlebury where Don finally applied himself to academics and discovered he had a natural gift for learning. His academic commitments paid off. After graduating cum laude, he would earn a master's degree from Harvard and become a 2-time Fulbright scholar. But years in lecture halls left Don missing the outdoors, and he searched for a way to combine his two passions, academics and skiing. He found his calling at the Holderness School in New Hampshire. At Holderness, Don was a legendary teacher and coach for 4 decades. His efforts would cultivate student athletes to compete in every Winter Olympic Games from 1956 to 1984. His roster ranged from Nordic standouts like Dick Taylor and Ned Gillette to Alpine athletes such as Gordy Eaton, Jeff Bruce, and Terry and Tyler Palmer. Henderson teamed with Bob Beatty to help put Billy Kidd and Jimmy Huga on the podium at the 1964 Olympics in Innsbruck, Austria. And he also served as head U.S. ski team Alpine coach at the 1970 World Championships in Val Gardena, Italy, where the U.S. would win 4 medals. Don died peacefully at his home on May 29, 2018, having taught everyone he knew how to live life well. Holderness fundraising still to this day is driven by the gratitude created in the hearts of all by Don and Pat Henderson. For his role in nurturing U.S. Olympians both on and off the hill, Don Henderson earns induction into the U.S. Ski and Snowboard Hall of Fame.
Jack Henderson was escorted to the stage by his wife, Marnie Henderson, and the medal will be presented by his nominator and very good friend, Sam Stout. Go ahead and...
Thank you very much.
Jack Henderson, in memory of your father, Don Henderson, having been elected by representation of the 15 million skiers and snowboarders in America, we hereby bestow upon you, in his honor, our country's highest snow sport award, the Medal of Honor, and confer upon you from this day forward, April 6, 2019, in Salt Lake City, Utah, induction into the U.S. Ski and Snowboard Hall of Fame, where your father's accomplishments will forever be remembered.
Thank you. Some of the things I'm going to say is going to sound a little familiar, but my dad did grow up in Berlin, New Hampshire, and this is in the late 20s and early 30s, and not much happened in Berlin, New Hampshire. Basically, you went to high school. If you were lucky, you got a job at the brown paper company, and you put in your 30 years and retired, and that was your life. But for Don, the circumstances were different. World War II had started, and Don enlisted in the 10th Mountain Division, went to Camp Hale for several years, then was shipped to Italy, got badly wounded in Italy, but went on to ski for Middlebury, as you heard earlier, and then attended Harvard for his BA, or MA, I mean, and then went to the London School of Economics. So Don had come a long ways from a little Berlin ski town. And he went to Holderness School, where he taught U.S. history and coached skiing for over 30 years and turned out a lot of great ski racers, and actually stimulated a lot of kids that didn't necessarily ski but learned a lot about life from Don. In 1964, you heard, he was with the U.S. ski team, and then in 1969 and 70, Don was the head coach, and Don was a very innovative coach. He took the team early in the fall of '69 to a company in Los Angeles that had a wind tunnel, and they strapped some skis down on some bindings and put a resistance disc, I think it was, in front of you, and by alterating your tuck and your arms, you could actually see how you could make the perfect shape. And I remember my dad telling me that actually, I think it was Moose Barrows, who was 6'2" or 3", actually had the most aerodynamic shape of just about anyone on the team. But so he was innovative. He was also an aggressive coach. At the World Championships in Val Gardena, Don brought in a very young skier and replaced a longtime member of the team. And after the first run, Gustavo Turney was in first place, and Steve Lathrop was in third. And it was a big deal. And Steve came to Don and said, you know, second run here, I'm in pretty good shape. What do you think I should do? And Don says, you go like hell. So Steve took out of the gate. Unfortunately, he hooked a tip, but that was Don. He wasn't settling for second or third or anything else. And like everyone in this room, you know, Don loved the snow. He loved the mountains. He loved everything about skiing. When he was dating my mom, his idea of a date was to invite her to ski up at the Tuckerman's Ravine, which required a 3-hour hike through the snow. And as they got to the top, Don said to Pat, he goes, now, listen, Pat, start scuffing your ski boots here, because many times people will bury some beer and then they'll forget where they put it. And we're going to get a free beer out of this. And my mother was, yeah, whatever. And about 30 seconds later, sure enough, clunk, her boot hit a beer. And she told me later that 2 things. She goes, 1, it was the best beer she ever had in her life. And 2, that she was going to marry Don Henderson. And that happened. But as Don got older, even when he was 89 years old, I think he skied 51 days. Yeah. And he had both his hips replaced twice and both his knees replaced twice, so he didn't really bend. And so he found out that if he left his boots by a heater, he could get them on, and then he'd drive to the Dartmouth Skiway with his boots on and ski, and then come home with his boots on, and then sit in his chair for an hour or 2 until his boots thawed, and then he could get them off, and he did that for 51 times. So that was Don. About a year ago, before he died, I stopped in to see Don, and this is a few months before he died, and he was reading the Valley News, which is a local paper, and I said, Don, what are you reading? And he goes, oh, the obituaries. And I said, why? And he goes, well, I want to see who I beat. So that's Don Henderson, and I know he would be really touched by all you here, and thank you so much.